I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with Jeremy Podeswa, Executive Producer on the post-apocalyptic limited series Station 11, for which he also directed the second and ninth episode plus the season finale. Jeremy, Station 11 is at its core a show about hope and love and art and humanity. And even though it's about a pandemic, well, it's set during a pandemic, it's so ultimately life-affirming. It's what I love most about it. So I wonder, how did telling this story resonate with you personally?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, you characterize it very well. I'm really glad you didn't say it was strictly speaking a pandemic story. And it is dealing with all these big ideas, big themes. And I guess it resonated for me on all of those levels. I'm a creative person, so the way it deals with the importance of art in our lives and what it means to our culture and just the centrality of it in all our lives was really something that resonated with me very strongly. And then I think just, there's the large human values that the show is kind of dealing with, which have to do with what's really important in life at the end of the day. We sort of fall into these traps of thinking certain kind of material things are important. And I think when you sort of break things down and in a situation like this in the show where everything is lost for people, you realize that essentially what counts is family, whether it's like a natural family or chosen family, love, really very, very basic, very fundamental things. And I think that was what was so beautiful about the show, and it really resonated for me, is that you see all these characters that go through tragedies, they endure horrible losses, but at the end of the day, they find a reason to go on through the relationships and through the creation of art. So for me, that was really meaningful, and I think it is for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I think that is, in the face of this like horrifying world-ending catastrophe, it's art that sustains us as human beings. It enables expression, which is, we sometimes give that short shrift. We don't sometimes appreciate how important that is for human beings to express themselves as their true self and through art and creativity. And this show really puts that at the forefront, even in the face of significant peril and hardship. Did that theme and mindset, do you think, permeate through the production of this series, given that, there was a pandemic going on in the background as well?
I think without question, it really kind of informed everything about the show when we were making it, because all of us were making the show, and I should say we were making this pre-vaccine, so everything was a little bit fraught. Up until this point, all of us had been living in our houses, not really going out, not seeing people. This was like the first time we actually came out, to do something, but it felt a little bit dangerous, but it also and risky, but it also felt like we were coming together to make this thing which we all really believed in, and it kind of gave us a purpose. So it was, for us, the making of the show, like the making of a work of art that we could share with people, and also, in the process, kind of like grapple with all the things that we're all dealing with the loss of our regular lives, of not being able to see our friends and families, and not being able to travel and live in the way we normally live. We were all mourning all those things in a way, and then here we were all coming together to make this work of art. And I think that really, it helped us get over the fear and the feelings of risk that we were taking to make this. And it made us feel like we were doing something really worthwhile. And I think right now, I can't even imagine not making this show during the pandemic, because I don't know what I would have done for all those months of just being, shut in and being miserable and unhappy and scared. And this gave us all a purpose, and it gave us something to deal with on a creative level that was really emotional and powerful. And it was a kind of a release for everybody too, because we'd had all this pent up stuff for all these months of enduring all these things and witnessing the horrible things that were going on around the world, and people dying and people being sick. And it was a lot for everybody. And the show, I think, because it does function, on a level of emotionality or emotionalism. I don't know what the word is exactly, but it's as you probably know, watching the show, it's just there's a lot of cathartic, very moving, very powerful moments in the show, even though there is humor and other things too. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think when we were doing these scenes that were really powerful, and there were many of them, we were all incredibly moved. I mean, I was crying all the time when we were making the show, because the actors who just play these scenes, they're beautifully written and they were beautifully played, and I would just get so moved. And I think I was triply moved just because we were all going through this heightened state of emotionalism anyway. And then this allowed us to have this kind of release, through the characters and through the story. And it was really meaningful, I think, for everybody. I don't think I'll ever work on a show like this again, or have this kind of experience again. you know.
Yeah, I hear you, because I mean, as the viewer watching it, taking it in, I mean, I was so immersed in the story, and it actually made me come to the realization, or reckon with some of the feelings that I had about being shut in and having the terror of not knowing what's going to happen to our kids and so forth. You know, just these really existential questions that many of us weren't even grappling with, because we were just so preoccupied with moving on and moving forward and getting through the day. And Station 11 is a work of art that really makes us feel something, and also made us, at the end of the series, made us feel really positive and affirmed, I suppose that's a word, about humanity. And don't you think that that's something that we kind of need more of at the moment, given that everything is so miserable and horrifying in real life?
Yeah, I think like that is, for me, that's the great miracle of the show in a way, is that it takes you through this emotional ringer, but at the end, you really feel like your life is enhanced, and that like you have this kind of sense of compassion for people, and a kind of openness and this sense of love for everybody in the show, and even for people around you, because you can extend it beyond the show in a way. And yeah, I think that, sorry, what was your question again exactly? But like,
Well, yeah, I was just wondering if that life affirming mindset was something that
yes,
that was very, very obvious on set.
yes, I think it was because it was very much built into the script. So I think that was like really like something that we were going for. It was like a very important thing to Patrick Somerville, who created the show, and to all of us involved, that this was not like a familiar feeling post-pandemic or post-apocalyptic show. Like it's not The Walking Dead, it's not The Road. It's like it was, but very much made in opposition to those kinds of things. Like it was this idea that like, yes, we could go through crisis, and there could be calamities that are like have huge scope and impact on everybody's lives, but that doesn't mean that life is over, or that you're necessarily in a dystopia. It just means that life is different, and there's a way through tragedy and a way through loss, and that's what this is about, is finding your way through all of that to something else. And how do you survive these things, and how do you find meaning in life after that? And that's what the show is dealing with, well, not the positive things that come out of loss, but a way out of loss and towards something else.
Yeah, and exactly, and surviving trauma and trying to come out the other side. Look, there's so much. It's a really deep show, and it's the way that it's structured. It flitters back and forth in different timelines and different storylines, and I just love the way it congeals all together at the end. You took on 3 episodes, 2,
Yeah.
9, and the series finale. Talk us through why you took on. How does it work with production? How do you get to choose which episodes you work on?
Well, I was on very early, and so I think, and I was also an EP on the show. So coming in at that point, there was really a discussion like, which episodes did I want to direct, and then which ones would we have other people direct? And it was actually really hard to choose, because the scripts were so great. And in fact, there was like another episode, I won't say which one, but there was another episode I really wanted to direct, but I won't say. But
Okay.
like, from a scheduling point of view, it was just impossible. But it was very important to me and to everybody that I direct the first year 20 episode, which is episode 2.
Yeah.
Because there's a huge new sort of world building aspect to that.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 episodes where really the whole thing comes together. And episode 9 was a very special episode in a way, because it's really like its own little movie. And it's a sort of unexpected episode in the middle of this whole show, where we're tracking all these other things. We kind of take a time out from those other stories, and we go back in time, and we see what happened to this character who we've been missing through the entire show. And we see what his backstory is. And that to me was a beautiful, beautiful episode. And then 10 was like, really like, I had to direct 10, because it is like, even on paper, it was so gorgeous. And it just, all the threads come together. The show is a very complex weaving. It's like, it's very intricate in the way it kind of weaves these stories. And then 10 is so satisfying, because all the threads kind of come together in this really beautiful and unexpected way. And even things we don't think are going to come together, like Miranda's story and other things, which we feel like that story has been told, but there's more. And it all comes together in this like amazing thing where it's actually one of the beautiful things about the show, that really talks about how everything is connected, how we're all connected as human beings. And even if we don't know how we're connected, and we impact each other's lives. Like Miranda has this huge impact that nobody's even aware of, that she ended up saving all these people in the airport. And it's just like a beautiful, beautiful idea, I think, of how important we all are to each other in ways that we don't even understand. And I loved that so much. And I just loved all the opportunities from a cinematic point of view that that episode afforded. And I was really happy to do it. But it was actually, I have to say, it was more emotional than I thought it was going to be, the episode. Like I was moved by it, obviously, on the page, but when the actors brought it to life and we cut it all together and you see how all these stories resonate off of each other and how complex it all is, it was like quite shattering to me. Like I hate to keep saying that I'm crying all the time, but it makes me sound like a total softie. But I was like weeping through that show, when we cut it together. Like I was amazed the impact that it had emotionally. But such beautiful work.
It's so beautiful. When I discussed it with Patrick the other day, he said, I'm going to read this because I just the way he put it. He said the costume department, hair and makeup, production designer, Dan Romer's score, everything collapsed together as one of the densest expressions of multiple imaginations working together he'd ever seen on TV. And I totally agree with that because, he admitted he was very nervous about the finale because it's so ambitious, and it really is. I remember the scene where Kirsten is directing the play, I thought was stunning. But then when the stuff happens with Miranda, the payoff about the actual graphic novel and how she pretty much saved humanity, I was a mess. I'm just thinking about it now. I wish I could relive how I was enjoying and so immersed in that episode. So you've talked about the episode already, but do you recall? Was there one moment on set where you realized this is something really special and I can't forget it?
Well, I have to say that the phone call that Miranda makes to the pilot, we shot that very early in the schedule.
Wow.
And I was just floored. Like, Danielle Deadweiler, who's the actress, is Miranda. Yeah. Oh my God, she's such a powerhouse. She's unbelievably great. And on the page, of course, it was very moving, that scene, but in her performance, when we were filming it, it was just devastating. And I knew we had something incredibly special in that moment, and that was quite early on. So I have to say that was especially a very, very powerful moment. And then I think also there were a few, when we did Hamlet in that episode, what I was so happy with was how, even though the actors were exactly speaking Shakespeare's dialogue, they were talking about themselves. It was just Tyler talking to his mother and to Clark, but it was Hamlet talking to Gertrude, and it was such a beautiful melding of art and their life, and I don't know, just in the performance of it, it really was very exciting to see how much that really worked. And then, of course, it's the big reunion, which I guess we can speak spoilers at this point.
Yes, we can. Yes.
But the big reunion between Kirsten and Jeevan, which was it's a long time coming in the show. And when it happens, I think it's with Deborah Cox singing Midnight Train to Georgia. And that whole thing was just so gorgeous.
Yeah. And so earned because... And satisfying because I was okay with that. I didn't need to have any more. You could have probably taken it further and really given us explosives, but we didn't need it because they're going to see each other again when the Traveling Symphony comes back around, and that was fine. That was the hope that the audience needed. Mm-hmm. And when I spoke to Himesh about it, he was floored as well. He brought you up and how important you were to the way that he was able to tap into that emotion. He also said the episode before that you've referenced, was like a little movie, and he probably will never forget it. So there's a lot of emotion on this. It was a pretty heavy experience. Would you say, in 15, 20 years, will you think back and just what were you most value about what Station 11's taught you as a director?
God, I can't separate the show from what we were all going through because it was just this experience of COVID and all this, emotional stuff that was roiling inside of all of us, and making the show, which was so directly addressing all those things. It was such a weird synchronicity of life and art, but also there was Patrick wrote such a beautiful screenplay based on Emily St. John Mandel's gorgeous novel, which I absolutely love too. And it would just, it in a weird way, I didn't write it, but it gave me an opportunity as a filmmaker to deal with everything that interests me, from cinematically and thematically, the way it deals with, love and compassion and art and what are the big questions of life, what's really meaningful and what isn't, and all that kind of stuff, which of course preoccupies me enormously, like most people.
Yeah.
And then just creatively being able to this kind of multi-layered storytelling it's very much my jam. Like when I was a filmmaker making my own films, they were all like that. All the films I ever made, anything I ever wrote myself, was always like multi-strand storytelling. It's always something that really excites me as a filmmaker, is to do that. And this was done in such a sophisticated, complex, dense way, but still with clarity. So it was really, also world building and all, everything as a filmmaker that you love to do, everything was in the show. It was opportunities for actors to play great roles and for you to direct beautiful performances and to create a big world, and many big worlds actually, and to just grapple with all these big ideas. I mean, that doesn't happen every day, that combination of things. And so it was incredibly stimulating to do, and definitely one of a highlight for me of all the work that I've ever done. So
yeah, and I mean, you've got some great work in the past. You've done some beautiful work on TV with Homeland and Game of Thrones and Boardwalk, and I would say that the finale of Station 11 is probably one of the best things you've ever done, and that's saying something. But looking forward, are you more comfortable these days working in prestige television? And if so, why is that? What is it about TV these days that is so rich for creators like yourself?
Well, I think there's so much TV right now, but there's also a kind of real desire, I think, to push boundaries and to create meaningful work in this space. And I think so much of the cultural conversation has come around television now, and the way it used to be more in movies, I think, but now movies have become more event oriented, and we kind of moved away from from this kind of more complex storytelling, which now is the province of television. And so I think this idea, the opportunity to do serialized storytelling, to do very novelistic kind of storytelling in TV is very, very exciting. And so I'm very happy in that space, because you have amazing creative people like Patrick Somerville and other great people that I've worked with, like Benioff and Weiss, who do Game of Thrones, and Terry Winter, or Boardwalk Empire. And there's so many really fabulous writers, or Alan Ball, who I've worked with many times.
Right, of course. Yeah, forgot about that.
Now, and he's just, and so you get to work with these amazing writers who are really, kind of dealing with, big ideas and complex storytelling. And it's really a gift, for a filmmaker to work with these kinds of incredible creators. So, and who are very open to collaborating too. And they, it does become a real collaboration at the end of the day. So it's, for me, it's a very, very nice space to work.
It sure is. Well, I hope to see more of your contributions to the best in TV. Jeremy, thanks for your time today, and congrats on some beautiful work on Station 11.
Well, thank you so much.